Hello, folks. Welcome once again to Mental Health Matters. I'm Todd Weather, your host, behavioral expert, and treatment therapeutic consultant on WPVM 1037, the voice of Asheville. And with me today, I'm lucky to say I have the privilege of being with Dr. Brooke Shields. Brooke,
That'd be so cool.
Dr. Brooke Keels. She's the chief clinical officer with Lighthouse Recovery out there in Dallas, Texas. We got to go visit them not long ago. That was fun. And I don't just invite anybody onto the show. She's also kind of a cool person, and I enjoyed hanging out with her. Dr. Keels graduated from Louisiana State University in 2008 with a master's in science and counseling psychology, and from the University of Louisiana Monroe in 2014 with a PhD in marriage and family therapy. What's love got to do with it, Doc? Dr. Keels works to create, implement, and oversee the partial hospitalization program, that is PHP to you, those of you who know, and intensive outpatient program, IOP, an individual family therapy program, which is unusual for a recovery center to have such a strong family program at Lighthouse Recovery. She's worked in the recovery industry in a professional capacity for over 15 years in a variety of roles. She brings an empathetic, caring, and sometimes even humorous approach to all those she works with. Dr. Brooke, thanks for being with us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Um, I I get an audience that some of them know about recovery and treatment, and some are people who are
Yeah.
really just trying to be, educated and hear about this conversation. So, what does love have to do with it? The number of guys that get into recovery, and the minute like they're 3 months in and they're 3 months sober and they've got a girlfriend, and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. The girls too, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, girlfriend, boyfriend, girls with girlfriends, boys with the whole
Mm-hmm.
nine yards. They found a relationship already,
Yep.
um, and they seem to fill, what is it they call it in recovery, the God-sized hole, with
Mm-hmm.
that they were filling with drugs at one point in time, but they're filling with what they want to call love and intimacy,
Yes. Yep.
replicating not only patterns of their past, but also patterns of the marital relationship that exists between their parents. Would
Mm-hmm.
you say that's
Mm-hmm.
true? You see that happen? Like, let's tease this
Um,
out. Let's map this sucker out. The
okay.
relationship map of a person who is in recovery in your care. What do you see?
Oh gosh. To be clear, I've been doing this, I think 16 years now. It has changed. I think it's gotten more complicated and not to sound inappropriate, but easier access.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
kind of like substances, like you can Snapchat for meth or to
Or
hook up with somebody.
right.
Yeah, it's all just available and they'll come to your house. And so I think that, you know, number one, I think the desires are always healthy, right? Like even with substances in some way, like I am hurting, this thing meets a healthy desire that I have to feel not in pain or to feel connected or whatever. I think it's the same thing with relationships. I feel alone. This makes me feel not alone, even if maybe this person isn't the greatest, or the healthiest. And I think so. What we see in early recovery, and now I work with mainly all men, and for 5 years, all females. I think it's really, and obviously, man, I'm even trying to map this out in my head. I think it starts with who will be nice to me and the exciting part, and probably using like the drug seeking behavior. This is exciting. Let me get on the apps. Let me see who I can connect with. Like, let me do all of that. And then that loneliness can settle in. And then we kind of try to decide who will, you know, be with us forever and
It,
put up with our crap forever, you know? And I mean, I often tell guys, I'm like, you've been looking at being healthy for like 7 minutes. Like, I need us to get to healthy,
first.
and yes, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be in relationship with someone. There's nothing wrong with we can, the emotional, spiritual, physiological need that we have to connect with others. But just because you no longer use substances doesn't make you healthy. That is a learned behavior. And often it has to be learned on your own, in your own journey. Like the
Mm.
people in your life maybe just started having healthy boundaries with you, right? And so, like you said, we will see there is definitely a correlation with my mom is now no longer enmeshed with me because we've been working on that and she's getting healthier and
Setting
then
boundaries.
setting boundaries. And so all of a sudden, here comes a female that looks very similar to the relationship you had with your mom. And if you want to weird somebody out, you tell them that, but I'm okay with it because it's weird.
Yeah.
So we need to we need to talk about it. So yeah, we one of
Freud had a point.
yeah, you know, him and his cocaine had
We
some
don't
thoughts.
we
And
didn't we
so
don't we're not going to go all the way down that rabbit hole, but we'll give him
right,
credit where credit is
yes,
due.
that's
You
right.
know, you
Yeah, there
imprint on the
there
thing that's in front of you first, right?
yes. Yes, absolutely. And again, we're there, everybody's just trying to figure it out. So I have a lot of grace for it, but I think we have to also be honest with how sick things can get very quickly when we are trying to be healthy and we go find someone else who is either not healthy or also kind of trying to be healthy, and then you put them together in a room,
Right.
and another thing that
They
we
find each other like magnets.
oh yeah, like I when I first started this, I was like, I don't think I could ever get anyone to date me as quickly as like if I, know what I mean? Like if I were single and I was like, it's time. Like even 25-year-old bro, like there was no, I don't know. They got them in swarms. Like it's just they're everywhere.
Well, and
Um.
I have some friends who are still bachelors, they're older
Mhm.
bachelors. And one of these friends who'll come by and visit and we'll have dinner or something like that and hang out, and about half the time he's
Mhm.
scrolling. And I'm like, I it is it is surreal to me to watch because
Yeah.
I've been, I'm married 26 years and been with my wife
Right.
almost 30, and none of that stuff existed back then, of course, and that's not the way
No.
you did it. And I like you, like I'm like I don't, there's no way I would find somebody that fast. Even with all the mechanisms, I think that finding somebody fast is kind of the wrong way to approach it. Um,
Hmm.
but it's people in recovery seem to have it's like they're going to a well with a hole in a bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they keep trying to fill this bucket. They refuse to patch the hole,
Hmm.
and they get some water, but then they're just going right, like it's this never ending cycle that they keep going through. And
Yeah.
maybe they can't see the hole. I think that that's true. They don't know that it's there.
Yeah. Or sometimes, the few minutes with the water feels good enough
Right. Right. They
to
got that was
just keep,
enough. Right.
yeah, let's just see what happens.
And they don't know
Yeah,
what
I
it is.
think,
They don't even know what it is to be nourished. Like they don't like that is to
yeah,
them. That's as much as they've ever had, and this must be what that is,
yeah,
right?
yeah. You were nice to me. I'll take it, for
Apparently,
like a
that's
minute.
all it
Yeah.
takes. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think that, yeah, I mean, and I think that's the challenge is people understanding like you have to learn what healthy is. You have to learn who safe people are. What do they look like? What is a healthy relationship at all? And another thing that we talk about often, and I had to build this into our programming, was intimacy and sexuality are not the same thing, right? We're meant to be connected at intimate levels with different people, especially platonically. And we're seeing really that too. Like a lot of, not just in recovery, but a lot of people in general just have no idea how to be a friend or have a friend or
Know
even what
what
that looks like.
platonic intimacy looks like.
Yeah.
Hey, I
I
like
mean,
you and I'm
there's,
nice to you. That doesn't mean we have sex together. Like,
mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and even, yeah, that was something I feel like in the last like 10 years I have seen just really shift. And so we've had those conversations of like just because you like care about somebody or think they're great or see like things you like about them, like you don't have to make out with them.
Now, do you
you
have
know.
like what do you think about the whole, let's tease this out a little more
Okay.
because we're running into the rabbit hole, Warren. Not just the hole, the entire Warren. Um, we, there's there are religious beliefs out there that talk about, that basically men and women are intended to be together for this purpose and that purpose only. Otherwise, they're in in social environments, and their relationships are supposed to look a certain way. There are certainly belief systems, even if they're not religious, that are, you know, men can't be friends with women, women can't be friends with women, men. There's all this kind of stuff that's old, that's kind of old stuff. Like there's
Hmm.
generational stuff that's wrapped up in there. And then there is the, you know, media driven, app driven, find the next relationship and everything else. And uh, in some ways, I think somebody asked me what it's like, it's like, how do you have a successful marriage? Like, how do you do that? I'm like, I couldn't tell you. I, the reason I have a successful marriage is because every day I still want to be with this person. They're my friend. I
Hmm.
enjoy I enjoy my time with them. I want to,
Hmm.
when I have something meaningful to share, they're the first person I think of to share it with. And it's
Hmm.
like, I, I found my friend, and I found somebody
Hmm.
that I wanted to share a life with. And, I can promise you that we've had arguments and tough times and struggles
Hmm.
and things we had to get through and growth that we had to do, but either on our own or together or both
Right.
at the same time. And, like that, the relationship changes. And if it doesn't grow, there's so much that I think about when I think about what is a successful relationship. And the other thing that I know is that I'm not resting on my laurels. I
Hmm.
don't stop working on being someone who is my wife's partner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
every day I'm still thinking about the thing. Like I'm not, oh, well, hey, it's done. And now I don't do anything, just kind of hang out by myself and do whatever. Like there's not this place. I think that we've got a false like, and then you're married and things are, rainbows and flowers sprout out of the walls or whatever. Or somebody's nice to
Right.
you and that means that you're going to be together for life. Like we've got these false, ladder of inference kinds of beliefs and value systems even that are they're arguing with one another. They don't match up. They don't line up. They've got poor information. It's like, as like
Mhm.
in your work, how do you help them tease all that out? Like,
I mean, I think I would start with like what you just described is an intimate relationship, and it had nothing to do with you guys making out, right?
I mean, at
Like
one
it
point it
is.
did, but
I mean, yeah, which is good. I mean, we want that. Like,
right,
to be
right.
clear, I want that to happen. Please make out, right? But I like the what you described is like this is who I want to share things with. I value her insight. I want to continue, I want to grow on my own for myself and for her. We both have identified that we have to be healthy people separately, and then that helps
We
us
can
be
be healthy
healthy
together.
people together, right? And I think, especially if people get married young or even in just like committed relationships, there's like this, marriage is kind of almost like immediate codependency. And then you figure out how to be interdependent, because we do all have these dreams. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, you can't actually meet that need for me. And if you do, then that's going to be really weird. And this is going to get sick and really unhealthy. I think the other part of it too is the commitment that you mentioned, right? Like, a huge part of loving someone is being committed to how can I be the healthiest? How can I also recognize when things are hard and then show up and say, what do we need to do about this? Are we willing to put in the work for it? And, you know, I think when you teach people what are the desires you actually have when you are with someone, and they would probably say a lot of the things you just described. I want a friend,
Mhm.
right? I
Right.
want somebody I can spend time with and that wants to hang out, but also has, I'm talking just from a male perspective, but female perspective, of course, has his or her own life. I want, kind of all of these really amazing things. and then we talk, okay, so let's talk about the work to get there. And I think that's where I start is like, what do you actually want? And if we have that vision, then we can
Hold it.
start looking at, yeah, let's hold it. So then, when somebody comes in, like I've
Do
got a
they?
few guys right now
Right.
that are in committed relationships, right? And I'm like, so tell me how what you just explained to me lines up with your goal of being in a healthy relationship. And I let them sort that out because I can't go like that doesn't sound, sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel great. Right.
Right.
Like let's talk through that. And, you know, um, a guy a few weeks ago, he realized, he goes, I really like her, but we are not good together. And I just felt like that was such an incredible revelation because that's the
Yeah.
other piece is you can really think somebody's great and not
And they might
be with
be.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's not a bad person because you don't want to marry her. That's
Right.
okay, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I think the other thing is that's in there, you know, befuddling things is the whole distress tolerance for a person in recovery from addiction.
yeah,
Um, and they get relatively little distress tolerance. Any pain is too much pain. Well, hyperdendritic neurosensitivity, right? Is that what it's called? Any pain is
that
too
sounds
much
great.
pain. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, with opiate addicts,
Sounds
it's when
really smart.
especially people who are you treating pain with opiates.
Yes.
It's when the dendrite they get instead of three dendrites as
Yeah.
pain receptor, you've got
Yeah.
40. Like
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
everything's and you know
Yep.
lo any loneliness is too much loneliness, right? Like
Hmm.
so,
Yep.
or any work I have to do for this relationship is too much work. It's like if it's not easy
Yep.
all the time, constantly, and feels great, then it must
Yeah.
not be working. It's like,
Right.
yeah, wait. One realization is, like you say, this guy is like, I like her as a person, and but I don't think we're good together. The
Hmm.
other one is, I now that it's gotten hard, I need to
Hmm.
cut it off. It's like, well, wait a minute. Is
Right.
it because that it's gotten hard? Is it something that's worth working on? Is it something that's,
Exactly. Yeah.
on the other side of whatever work it takes to get through this difficult moment? Is there something there that might be worth it, that might be greater
Mhm. Yeah.
than the concept you have now for it?
Absolutely. And I think that again, that goes back to like that vision. Like, what is a healthy what is healthy confrontation? Like, we spend a lot of time on healthy confrontation. We spend a lot of
Right.
time on being honest with how we feel and then seeing how someone reciprocates. And in this guy's case, it was he recognized that he becomes an unhealthier person when
Mm.
they are spending time together. He's like, when I'm with her, I don't want to work my program. I don't, you know what I mean? I know she will let me get away with things. Like I'm starting to see the codependency in there, right?
Right.
And so I mean, again, this is like, I was very.
You,
It was a good session.
you were
That
walking
was,
around the office with flags and
I know. I was like, am I the greatest therapist? It wasn't me, I promise. But yeah, but yes, then there's the other of like, well, this got on my nerves, or he got on my nerves, she got on my nerves, like whatever it is. And it just is like, well, so again, what's the vision? Like, is it worth it to you? Like, what is this person? And I'll tell you, and this may be really mean, and you can feel free to edit it out, but
tell me
often,
straight, doc, I can take it.
like a lot of people when they're sick and someone is dating them, I'm like, what's wrong with them that they would want to be with you? Because you're an incredibly unhealthy person. So what's wrong with them that they would want to be with you? And often there is a lack of respect. They are keeping this person around to meet a need, right? Same thing. I'm uncomfortable. They'll make me feel special for a minute, or they'll, whatever it is. And I'm like, that's not a healthy person. It doesn't make them a bad person. That's not a healthy person. And I think you have probably seen this over the years when, as even people are in committed relationships or marriages, when one of them gets healthy, the other one who looked healthy, come to find out, isn't really so much. And they don't
Yeah.
necessarily really want their spouse or significant other to get healthy because
Starts to
then
fall
what's their
apart.
role? Yeah. And I see that a lot. I see that a lot. So, the spouse gets healthy and then all of a sudden the wife is, or significant other is like, wait a second.
There's a lot of divorce out there these days. I see it all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Client side and otherwise, it's just, yeah, somebody does something that's significant in terms of change, or or maybe they make a poor choice. Who knows? There are all
Yeah.
kinds of reasons, but the 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 gig is up. New
Yeah.
information is here, and then people are like, yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
actually, and I wonder how. I mean, as you grow older, I think that if you do any work at all,
Mm-hmm.
insight is inevitable. Now, there are plenty of people who walk through life without a whole lot of insight, sure. But if you do any work at all and you set any intent and you get in front of somebody like you that asks you a question like you just had, like you so,
Mm-hmm.
and that question, I don't need an answer from you now, but that question's going to rattle around. It is like
Yeah.
it won't go. It's like a splinter in your mind. It won't go away.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, out of that comes something that you can see, and maybe it's a little ugly, maybe you don't like it.
Yeah.
And then, insight is inevitable. And then when
Yeah.
insight happens, it, the whole scene changes. The whole scene changes. And that I think is terrifying for people, and I think that's why they don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
It,
got to be terrifying to sit in your office for a lot of these guys. Like, uh-oh,
oh gosh, probably. Yeah.
I gotta go sit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walk in,
Get, I do get, they avoid me a lot. Yeah.
that bet. Tense up
No,
and
I mean,
turn their head and walk away.
I will say though, like, hopefully, right, when you're asking these kinds of questions, it is the time has been taken. I'm very intentional about this. Like, I have to earn the right to say those things to you, right? Whatever that looks like. And that
Right.
doesn't have to take a long time. Um, but I know for me, the best things that have ever happened in my life was someone who was willing to say, this doesn't look good.
Right.
I don't know that you're actually proud of the way you just acted. I don't know if you know what I mean. And they separated it from me as a person. I've had
Yeah.
mentors that they're not calling me a bad person, but they're saying what just happened doesn't align with who I think you want to be or who I know you to be. And if
Right.
they had not said those things, and look, sometimes it's actually probably pretty often it's my husband. He is happy to tell me. And thankfully we have that kind of relationship. But you have to have that. I think there is a trust, even though those questions are not great. But I also give people the space, and I know you do this too, to come back and go, I know what you said, and this is really bad, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But you know what? That's ownership, and I'll take it.
Yeah. I was in a conversation with somebody in recovery one time. It was at a professional event, and all kinds of people. And we were in this conversation, and we were talking about giving people feedback, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's like, this is what and we were talking about somebody. I was like, I, I don't spend a lot of time with that person. I they do things that make me feel uncomfortable, and I just choose not to be around them. And they were like, well, why wouldn't you tell them that? Why don't you just give them that feedback? I'm like, giving people feedback is a heavy emotional investment in
Mm-hmm.
relationship. You know,
Yeah,
you
it's good.
you need to have permission for one, just to even relate to a person on that level. Um, I need to give a damn too.
Yeah, then
I
there's that.
like I want to I'm gonna I
Yeah,
need to
to
care
care.
about you, not about necessarily us, or anything. Like I need to care about you in order to be willing to kind of take the vulnerability risk of
Yes.
sharing an opinion that you might not like to hear with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I I don't want to just I'm not walking around the world just giving people feedback about stuff that they're doing. That's no way to
Right.
be. You're gonna make
Right.
you're gonna make enemies very quickly, I think. But like
Yeah.
it's kind of a sacred thing. You know what I mean? And I think good
Yes.
therapists like yourself um,
Mhm.
create a sacred space in their office.
Yeah, gosh, I love everything you just said so much. I'm gonna try to be really cool about it, but you have to have permission. And and it is sacred. And that is, like you said, vulnerability and connection. And yes, there's both sides. It is number one, I have to actually care about you to say it. And I also am of the mindset, not everyone belongs to me. Not everyone belongs to you. If I'm walking around, like you said, the whole world just telling everybody what we see, that's incredibly judgmental and unkind, right? So I can say the same thing to someone I have permission to speak into their life, and that is kind. But if I say it over here with someone I don't have permission, that is cruel. And in my opinion,
Yeah,
right? And so there's kind of this it's this thing I kind of keep remind myself because I think like if you're in this field and you love it, you can see things like you can see stuff in people they don't see yet. I hope my joke is like I'm only good at two things. This is one of them. Like I don't know where states are. Like don't ask me. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's fine,
right.
and I'm really good with that. By the way, I don't need to know. But I have this phrase like "don't spank the neighbor's kids," meaning if
Yeah,
I'm standing in my yard and the neighbor's kids are acting a fool, as we would say, those of us from Louisiana, and I go and spank them, that's abuse,
right.
right? If my kid is in my yard acting a fool and I spank him, and this is for the story, nobody should be offended by the discipline I'm using, but that's discipline, right? It's not so the same action in two different relationships. And so I think when people try to, even people they know, but if you don't actually have permission to speak into this, I think you really need to consider what your motives are. Like, what's actually the point? Is it that you are caring for them well, or not?
Yeah. Or
You
you're
know,
using it
and
as
so,
a power dynamic because that's
mhm,
your need.
exactly.
I think we see that in the field too.
Yeah.
All the like a lot more than we should.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
the
that's fine.
yeah.
Don't spank the neighbor's kids. That's how I say it to myself often. I'm like, that is not yours. Just go away. Just step away.
Wow.
So
I think we need to make bumper stickers and t-shirts. Don't spank
you
the
think so?
neighbor's kids. They're not yours. It's not
They're
yours
not
to
yours.
spank.
And we
Oh,
don't have the capacity for everybody anyway. So just
right.
remember that.
Oh my gosh, it's just too much. And I think that, you talk about that and guys who enter your program, you know,
Hmm.
they walk in by choice. They walk
Yes.
in knowing what it is that they've gotten into. And I think that people get hung up on this a little bit. It's like, well, you're in a paid role. How can that still be genuine? It's like just because I'm paid to do my job doesn't mean that I don't care or that I don't feel
Hmm.
or that I'm not giving you everything that I've got. Like I'm here, I'm doing the work that's mine. Sure, I get paid to do that, but I'm doing it in a way that because I know how to honor this relationship. And that's something that's going to be super important in order for, for me to ask questions and you to be vulnerable and there to
Hmm.
be growth out of this experience. And
Yeah.
you need somebody, and I had another interview. He's talking about holding space. It's like,
Hmm.
we're going to hold the space for you to make these steps.
Yep.
And sometimes they're going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm going to ask questions that you don't have answers to. And when you finally do have answers to them, they're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Um, but it's going to be worth it, in the end. It's going to be worth what comes out of it. Um,
Yep.
in your opinion, though, there are certainly, you get guys that come through your program. You guys have got a good program. You've got a strong clinical structure. You've got you in charge of it. Like there's a lot of checks and balances going on and how these guys develop. And you get a pretty high success rate. But there are also guys that come out and they don't make it out on the other side. They leave early or they leave for the wrong reasons, or they leave and they do something not following through with recommendations that have been made for them over and over again, and they know what their recovery is
Yeah.
supposed to look like, but they do not do that. What's the difference between the client that makes it and the client that doesn't, do you think?
Surrender.
Oh, wow. That was quick, and I love that response. Oh
Yeah.
my
I
gosh.
think about it
Wow.
all of the time. Can you come to a place and go, maybe I don't like any of this, but I know that what I'm doing is not working and y'all seem to know. And I'm going to see what happens. Because surrender doesn't mean trust people that aren't trustworthy, right? I'm not like that's don't do that. Right.
Doesn't mean give up either.
Doesn't mean give up. It just means I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You tell me what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to try that and let's see what happens. Right. It's also not a sick, you know, you help me. And if you can't help me, no one can. Like, it's none of that. It's just,
Right.
you know, um, we've got a guy right now that I'm just in awe of, and he has been through it. I think he's at 20 something treatments. And he just came in and goes, just tell me where to be and when to be
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And I just respect that so much. But that is the difference. I have seen guys that are like, you know, they're fighting it and they'll say, what do I need to do? And I said, the best thing you could do. Because, you know, there's always like, when can I get out of here? Which I get. I mean, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm
Well,
like,
you
I
just got
promise
here,
I want you.
so not
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
right?
4 days ago. Yeah. But it's like, I want you out of here because I'm very intentional and I'm efficient. I want you out of here the second you don't have to be here. I want you to go live your life. And I want you to thrive and, you know, do all those things. Our
I'm not
entire team
keeping
is like
you.
that. No, no, I don't want that. You know, I like you, but it's better for the world if you are healthy and out there, you know,
Right.
and our founders are, I mean, that is the heart. But I've told a couple of guys, they're like, what do I have to do? And I said, the people that make it are the ones that come and say, I'm not leaving until you tell me I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and they can wrestle with that and we can like talk about it, but they and they'll say, oh, I'm ready. I'm like, no, 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 this is not. Don't tell me that
No.
now.
If you're if you have to say
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
it's probably wrong.
yeah. Like, you need to go think about what you are surrendering. You're saying, I am giving this over and I am trusting that when you guys say I'm ready, I'm trusting you're not taking advantage of me, that you're not, you know, all those things, which
Mhm.
again, of course, you're going to wrestle with that along the way. Um, and those guys are just, they're just doing so well. And I just, again, I'm just in awe of that. I respect it because it's
It's a
so hard for
beautiful
any
thing
of
to
us to
witness,
do.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it holds me accountable to it too.
Yeah.
What are the things that, you know, just because I may not use substances, right? It's a little less urgent in my life, but what are the things that I haven't really surrendered? And,
Yeah.
you know, that's the fun part about being a therapist is when you say something to someone and it's like, no, it's probably for me too. Should probably
It's
pay attention to that,
probably
you know?
some, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it nestles and you walk out the door and it's still walking with you. It's like, hey, you
Mhm.
said something today.
Especially as a parent,
Oh my gosh.
when I'm, you know, when I hear something like, I should probably be better at that.
Right?
So, yeah, but
Oh
that's
my
it.
gosh.
That's what I would say. Sorry if that answer was way too long, but
No, that's, I mean, that's the only answer, right? Like
yeah.
surrender is not abandonment. It's not
Hmm.
quitting. It's a very, very special thing
Yeah.
that, and the whole, like, well, you can't fix this with the same mind that created it. So how do
Hmm.
you change your mind? You
Yeah.
surrender it. You surrender your mind
Yeah.
to a process and to trust and to community and connection. And, at the bottom of the list of what makes recovery work, abstinence is at the bottom of that list. Is it important? Of course it is. But abstinence is not health.
Nope. That's exactly right.
And so, like, you got a lot of people who get sailed into a method, and 12 steps, great. Whatever your model is, find it.
Mhm.
If it speaks to you, if you resonate with it, find what your model is. Find the path that you can walk, or make a connection with the path that's in front of you.
Yeah.
You're gonna make it your own anyway. It's gonna become your own. If it's gonna be effective, it's gonna become your own. But you may not know where the destination is yet because you've never seen it before. So all you can do is
Right.
really surrender.
That's right.
I mean, it's
It's really
terrifying. I
good.
get it.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't, of course, like you're saying, like I would never be trite with that.
Mm.
Just like I'm not like, well, just give it over. I would slap someone if they said that to me. Like I don't.
Right.
I'd be so upset. Like and even like what you were talking about. We just had our clinical team meeting earlier, and one of the clinicians was like, this client keeps wanting to just talk about like, well, I might smoke weed one day. I might do it. I might do it. I might do it. And finally, and this is our deal, how we handle this often. He's like, I don't care. I don't want to talk about that. I want to know how you treated your family when you were on vacation.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about how are you living your life? Like, this substance means nothing to me right now. You know, like, how do we,
It's
it
just a
can become
projection
so,
anyway for you to not be here
yeah,
with me now. Right.
yeah. And if somebody came in with whatever you're dealing with, substances or anything else, right? If every time you went to counseling, they're like, well, did you do that thing? How was it? Did you do that? Did you struggle with that thing? It's like, well, it is not about not doing the thing. It's about, healing and finding these parts of yourself that that you actually wanted and didn't even know you could have, like you said. And I just think
Yeah.
that's really,
And and at the end of whatever it looks like that causes you to get there, if you get there and you find yourself to be healthy, and then you decided to smoke, like,
yep.
whatever. The qu-
That's what
the
I tell him.
the point
Yeah.
is the point is you're making decisions with a healthy mind.
Yeah. That is,
That's the
gosh,
point.
that's so good. That's, yes. I just need you have got to get healthy. Whatever decisions you make out of health, whatever.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm like, have you been healthy before? They're like, no. Okay. Well, let's just try that first.
Let's
And
try
then
that
whatever.
first. Let's start there,
Yeah.
shall we?
Yeah.
Before we
Yeah.
decide what you're
And
going to do after you're healthy. Let's aim for healthy first.
yes. And I'm like, look, I love to debate. I will argue with you about all kinds of things, but I'm not going to argue with you about, like the substance itself is not evil. And I think that, we have kind of this um, illogical idea or, of like making this thing, whatever it is we struggle with, bad. And I think that that actually keeps us entangled with it.
Yeah, it's part of there's a I like to dabble in all the various, philosophical arts, if you will, from
Oh, yeah.
different theoretical models that there are in psychology. I love looking
Hmm.
at a new model, or, you know, just put my toe in. I'm not a practitioner, I put my toe in,
Yeah.
and philosophy and everything else. So, and to pick and just kind of like pick bits and pieces out and be like, this is really cool. This could be. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
the first two lessons in the Course in Miracles. um, as far as I was concerned, I could have set the book down after those two.
Okay.
First lesson is you basically walk around and you like, um that doesn't mean anything, and you say it to the kitchen sink, and you say it to your mom, and like in your own mind, like you're like, that doesn't
Right.
mean anything. And people, places, things, objects, your car, like everything, you just spend a few minutes letting things go from their meaning. The second one
Hmm.
is, any meaning that has is meaning I gave it.
Hmm.
And it's like,
Yep.
those will unwrap your brain and your psyche
Hmm.
from a ton of stuff so quickly that it'll be disorienting. Like, you're like,
Yes.
"Ooh, wow." Like, you know, the thing that's on
Mm-hmm.
my phone or the person that walked by or my car. It's like that isn't any meaning it has is meaning I gave it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a car. It's just a machine. It's just a word. You know,
Yep.
in the end, by themselves, they're just, this painting on my wall is just a bunch of colors thrown onto a thing. It means something to
Mm-hmm.
me. If you look close enough, you can't see it, but there's a turtle in it. It's like, which is the nickname my wife has for me. Like, like any meaning it has is meaning I gave it.
Yep.
And you start unwrapping all that business. It's pretty cool,
It
terrifying,
is. Yes.
and pretty cool at the same time.
It like we yeah, like we don't realize how we function in life, giving meaning to things that maybe don't really matter all that much. But
Yeah,
what I love about what you're talking about is it makes you drill down what you
makes you drill
actually
down.
value
Yeah,
and why you value it, and kind of gets rid of all the noise. There's just so much
noise.
noise. My husband and I, he's a school psychologist, and we were talking about like when you have these kids that are so smart, but their filters are
But they're
so big.
dumb.
Yeah. But like if like all joking aside, like you do like an IQ test or whatever, right? And they've got these really high IQs, but their processing speeds are like a little bit slower. Not slow, but
Yeah,
slower than.
right.
And it's not that they don't have great processing speeds. It's that they are filtering everything. And I think we've kind of created this
Constantly.
world. Yeah, like we've created this world that we're trying to filter everything at all times. And it would be so incredibly uncomfortable to do what you just talked about, but I
Oh yeah.
love it so much because that's what I feel like we're always fighting for, is like there are actually very few things that we really value and wouldn't give up. And when you realize that you made up what that means to you, nobody else did, because we like fight for it, usually like against our parents or our spouses or whatever. And it's like none of this actually matters. But let's find out what does. And you can actually handle that because it's like a few things,
You're
not
actually designed to
12,000
handle
things.
it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Then
it's
there's that.
it's so here
Yeah.
comes the sci-fi side of me. It's like, the scene
Bring
in
it.
the last scene in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, he's experienced a death. He doesn't actually die, right? And he stands back up and they shoot a bunch of bullets at him and just, they all stop in front of him and he just picks up one bullet, he looks at it, lets it go, and they all drop to the floor and everything's
Right.
just like he sees everything for what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like that's kind of what you're trying to do with your life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people are throwing all this, you think you're filtering all this information and bullets are flying and it's like actually no. Actually
Mm-hmm.
there actually aren't any bullets here at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's like you
Yeah.
keep reacting to projected imaginary things
Mm-hmm.
and commanding your life as if it was chaos when it in many ways it's really quite simple.
Yes. Yeah. And guess what? We can grieve that. Let's grieve. It's okay. It's all right that it's weird and uncomfortable and you don't like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All right.
Grieve. That
Yeah.
was a life and you're going to let it and you're going to surrender and that
Mm-hmm.
whatever that was it'll go away, but
Mm-hmm.
another quote from another one of these sources is like you'll put these things aside as a child sets aside toys,
Mm-hmm.
not because they are unworthy but because you've outgrown them.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm like, just gonna like, let's spend some time making me miss
I,
college.
I
This
need
is
to come. I need to come back out to Texas, man. We need to hang out some more.
so good.
Oh my
Yeah, and
God.
I think, gosh, that's it too. I think the stages of life, I still teach like online psychology, which is ridiculous. I don't know why I do it, but
Because you need something else to do with your time, right? Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I think I've tried to quit like 4 times, and they just keep assigning me classes,
They
and
just
I'm
keep
just
giving,
like, oh, I know, I'm like, all
fine,
right.
fine.
And so, but one of them's like child development, and and I'm so fascinated to see, like, in that same vein, like, we kind of always have these clear developmental stages, but like what the research on how development has changed, just with, and I hate to even, it feels so cliche to even talk about, like, with social media and with the internet, and like, they had this article come out about how, like, the Southern accent is like going away, which, I mean, if you're listening to me right now, you find that very
I've still
hard to
got
believe.
mine.
That's right. I've, like our non-regional dialects, I guess, because of, all this exposure. Um, but I'm fascinated to see what happens next. But I think that, there's always kind of been this cliched, like, I don't really want to grow up, and like, I don't really, you know what I mean? But there's even meaning in that. And there's even, and like you said, we don't have to like make things, you give them up because you're mad at them, or this sucks now, or I don't like that. It's like, no, it just doesn't serve you well anymore.
Yeah.
And we can
It doesn't
find
fit.
new, yeah, it doesn't fit, and that's okay. And again, like you said, like, let's grieve it, be grateful for what it gave you and for what you learned in that season. And even when you're working with like severe trauma victims, like, you wouldn't tell somebody like every aspect of your life through that season was just like worthless and we should just throw it all away. That's not true. Like, our resilience comes out of these awful things. And there are things that are learned. Nothing is just all wasted. Do I wish
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to go through them? Sure, but you can't disqualify everything. I think that's very unwise.
Yeah.
And I think there's like this tendency to either make your trauma like your full story, and so that's all you identify with, so you can't move on, or to be like, let's pretend none of this ever happened, right? We're kind of on like two ends of the spectrum.
You throw the baby out with the bathwater, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
whole um I the what you're talking about, of course, is also you see people who experience who, suffer from personality disorder,
Mm-hmm.
they're grappling with that.
Mm-hmm.
They feel very attached to it. It's almost like an OCD thing. Like they can't give any of it up, or if they're going to give it up, they don't know how to not give all of it up. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know where this alignment place lives
Yep.
because they've never really experienced it. And the thing I love telling guys, especially, I think women, you can speak for women, and I don't, we've got a whole gender fluidity thing we could start talking about and run down the rabbit hole if we want to.
Sure.
But, like if we're going to generalize, my experience of women is that they have a tendency to be more in touch with feeling. They have words for
Mm-hmm.
feeling and they can identify feeling. Guys get out there and, there's two feelings. There's hungry and angry and maybe horny and,
Mm-hmm.
so alignment is a feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing I was like, and the cool thing is that it's not outside of you.
Yeah.
It's always with you.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get rid of it if you tried. Like you are you. And all you got
Yeah.
to do is stand still a minute
Mm-hmm.
in your mind, obviously, like in all the other ways, but also in your mind. If you stand still just a minute and like learn how to be present for just a minute, you're going to get a dose of it. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like seeing the sun for the first time. It's like you can't unsee the sun.
Yeah.
You can't do it. It's
Yeah.
like for a person who's seen the sun for the first time, it's like, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. Feels important. Yeah.
Feels important that
Yeah.
this thing I just, I that was
Yeah.
cool, and I think maybe that's important. I probably are not going to be able to forget that. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's good.
and I think that what you're doing, the work you're doing is just creating space for those guys to have a moment like that for a second, so they know what alignment looks like.
Yeah. Thank
And good
you.
on you. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. I mean, and to be clear, like, I do it here at Lighthouse, and I think you saw this because of the people I work with, because this is not something I could ever do alone. And we have a ownership and a leadership team and a group of people that
That
are
are aligned.
always, So aligned. And if we're not, we go, oh, that feels weird. How do we get back aligned?
Mhm.
Because we have something to compare it to, right? And that's what I just love is like if when I worked with this organization and we had all these young women that were out of trafficking situations and the staff would get frustrated in some ways because it's hard work, right? And they're like, they just don't, they're not doing this or that or whatever. And I'm like, or maybe they decide to leave or whatever it is. Like, but you are a healthy person. They have never met one of those before. They now can go out into the world and they have something to compare it to. And often they go, oh, I don't like this anymore, right? If all you know is sickness and unhealth, then there's no difference. But if they come and can have a little bit of health and see a little bit of health, then we have something to actually wrestle with to figure out, wait, where do I want to be aligned? And yes, it's that same thing. Like if things get wobbly, we just talk about it and get back in line. And it's just honest and real. And I'm so grateful because I could not carry 1 second of this without that team and community. And we try to live out the same things we were encouraging, our guys to live out is how do we function in community in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for it. I'm excited you got to be here and kind of see that too, because I think, people talk, they're like, oh, my team, blah, blah. I don't think I'd be doing this if it was not
Yeah.
with this team. Like I'd go find something else to do. I don't know what, because I don't know where states are, but I'd figure something out.
Yeah. Well, what the quote that comes to me is the tide raises all boats, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you guys in your alignment is this tide, and
Mm-hmm.
the guys that you serve are the boats, and it's greater than any one of you, right?
Yeah.
And and it's hard to attack. You know,
Yes.
I can attack a person. I can even attack a belief system if it's coming from a person. But
Right.
this like aligned value system is, I mean, what do you do? Like you can't fight that.
It, no. No. It's a
It's like
wall.
trying to push a
Yeah.
river. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the river. You know what I mean?
It's the river.
It's the river. Like, and eventually, the cool thing is that you can try to fight it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's bigger than you are, like a
Right.
lot bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to wear you out. And
Yep.
and that's going to be useful for you.
Yeah. It is. And the cool thing on the side is it doesn't wear the river out. That's it.
No,
Like
no, no.
we're fine.
We're fine.
Sometimes like it's fine.
Right.
I love when people are like, you know what, I used to get so mad at you and da da da. And I'm like, okay. They're like, that doesn't bother
I'm
you.
glad I
Hadn't
could
thought
be
about
that
it
for
at
you.
all. Yeah, yeah. I'm safe. You can be mad. It's all right,
That's cool.
But
Right.
yeah, we never have to worry about our team splitting and like those. And that's just such. I mean, again, as you've done this work, like it's when you can trust these people that you're
Do your
in the
side.
trenches with, it just
Hmm.
is such a relief. And it's also safe for the people you're helping because they realize, like, oh, these people it's one voice. We're all communicating the same, we're honoring each other. And then people are, oh, this is safe. I can't triangulate it, I can't manipulate it.
Right.
That's trustworthy,
Can't destroy
and
it.
can't destroy it. Yeah, it's a pretty, I'm just very grateful, truly.
Well, Brooke, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm sure we could just spend the rest of our day just hanging out right here, having
Yes, I
fun,
know.
quoting movies and making
I do.
talking
I
about the work.
appreciate you so much. Yeah, yeah. And I know. I think I got to get out to Asheville. I want to see those hills and
Yeah. Well, you would be most
talk about
welcome.
philosophy.
Right. Well, Mike makes the trip every once in a while. You tell him bring you along next time.
Yes,
We'll do it for real. But
yes. He told me he would.
it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much
Um,
for having me.
you're very welcome. This has been Mental Health Matters on WPVM 1037, The Voice of Asheville. I'm Todd Weatherly, your host. We'll be with you next time. Take care.